Thank you, Chairman. I don't know where to begin. I almost don't know what to say. So let's think of some of the statements that were made on the other side, supposedly factual statements. Our cities are safer now because our borders are open. That was one of the statements, basically. That we're safer now, that we have statistics, that the crime...
Would the gentleman yield?
I will not yield. I need my time.
Nobody said that, to be very clear.
I need my time. Yes, it was stated that the crime rate has gone down because of the open borders. Let's be serious in what was said. It did. We can review the recordings of it. Open borders don't make us safer. Your own FBI director, the FBI director said we're in a clear and present danger because we don't know all of the individuals who are coming into this country. And maybe crime rates can be adjusted too because we're letting people go the next day. We're changing because of very left-wing activists, prosecutors, and attorneys generals. We're changing felonies to misdemeanors. But if we want to say that and we believe that, maybe we should speak to the family of Lincoln Riley, to her family in what happened to her in Florida where she was beaten and murdered. Maybe we should speak to the Washington State Trooper over the weekend and his vehicle was crashed into by illegals and he was killed. And both of these had priors. They had committed acts before but were released. Maybe we should talk to the families of the NYPD officers that were beaten overwhelmingly because they had about a dozen illegals around them and they had no recourse. Maybe we should talk to the people in New York and in other cities whose school children are being removed from schools because the illegals are being temporary housing into where they are. Maybe we should talk to the people that live around tent cities that have cropped up across the country. Maybe we should talk to the people in my district where they were told that there might be as many as 60,000 illegals going into the Atlantic City airport because they didn't know what to do with them. Come on, we're denying common sense. Things have gotten worse.
Chairman, can we have order in the chamber?
Things have gotten worse. Everybody knows it. Every resident of this country, every citizen of the country feels it. Regardless of how much we talked about it, we can't make people believe that isn't something that isn't true. It is true. It is a problem. It's a real big problem. It's true that illegals were wearing Biden t-shirts at the border as soon as he got elected to be the president of the United States. It is true that Biden repealed all of the actions taken by President Trump and changed the entire dynamic at the border. We feel it, we see it, we hear it. America hears it, and regardless of how good you tell us it is, and how wonderful it all is, and how great it all is, people don't believe it. And the Senate bill, a few Republicans in the Senate said this bill was good. They couldn't even get the bill across the finish line because it was so bad, because it would use amnesty as a tool to allow these individuals to get into the country. And there was discussion that they would be giving apps on their phones so they knew where they were, or devices. Come on. It didn't have the stay in Mexico policy. And you know what? You know what happened with a real president? You go to Mexico, you talk to them the way it happened in the past and say, if you don't straighten this out, because Mexico doesn't want them, because Mexico has borders, better borders than we do, you go to Mexico and say, they're gonna stay in Mexico, or you're gonna send them back, or you're gonna have some tariffs or taxes that you're not gonna believe. So we still do, in that Senate bill, in actual fundamental truth, would have catch and release. If we don't have Title 42 anymore, that was allowed to expire. We're not finishing building the wall anymore. That wasn't done. The Senate bill stunk. It wasn't good. Tell the people the truth. It was something to make us feel good, to pretend that we did something, but we didn't. That's why Republicans in the House of Representatives opposed it, and plenty of Senate Republicans did as well. So the bottom line is there's a real problem here, and we're trying to deal with it as best we can. Unfortunately, our president currently does not. He could put executive actions in place today and change all of it, but he will not. So here we are, trying to hobble together the best that we can in different pieces of legislation to try to stop the bleeding. Let's tell the truth. I
Gentleman's
yield
time's
back.
expired. Any further members seek recognition? Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you so much. I'd like to yield my time to my colleague from Texas to oppose all of these alternative facts that we continue to hear. And I think the real problem that's posed right here today is that my Republican colleagues continue to give misinformation. And I'd really love to hear from our colleague from Texas who lives there daily, who has been engaged in this fight ever since we've been in Congress. And she is highly respected and revered for understanding the true depth of what's happening at the border. And I think that we need to once again let her be given the time and effort to dispel the alternative facts. And I yield to.
Thank you, Ms. McBath. You know, we have members of the audience sitting in this hearing, and I hope you're seeing what is actually unfolding here before you. We had a Republican colleague just now claim that on this side of the aisle we said that well, I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically that we said things are safer because of an open border. I don't think you've heard any single one of us, especially during this hearing, say at any time the word open border. Never said that. We could rewind the tape and you would not hear that. But that's part of the challenge that we face today. And it's part of the challenge really that we face in this Congress. There are serious people wanting to solve some of our serious challenges. It is very hard when there are folks on the other side of the aisle who refuse to even tell the truth. Going back again, I can't believe I keep having to fact check on the Senate bill, but I think it's important because it provides an example of the lengths that some will go to basically deny the truth. The Senate bill, again, which was called one of the harshest border bills in history, not by Democrats, it was Republicans who called this Senate border bill the toughest bill on the border ever. One of our colleagues just said that it created amnesty. No, I mean, that's part of why you heard us laughing. No, like, it couldn't even be further from the truth. In fact, many Democrats were upset because it offered no legal pathways. It was all enforcement. The other thing that my colleague on the other side of the aisle said was the Senate bill failed because it was bad. They started criticizing it before the text was out, before the text was even published. And they did it because former President Donald Trump told them to. So they followed orders and they were loyalists because Donald Trump said, I want the problem, not a solution. And they said, okay, we're with you. And week after week, we hear lie after lie after lie. Hard to solve big challenges when that's the way that Congress works for half of the Congress. I'm going to yield back to Ms. McBath, and hopefully there's some time for my colleague.
I yield the rest of my time to my colleague, Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you. I just wanted to make the case, rewind the tape here. One of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle said, cashless bail is the reason all these cities have so much crime, and then read through a list of cities and said, how did that all go for you? So I responded to that question. It had nothing to do with open borders. I talked about the cities that he mentioned and said, actually, crime is lower in those cities. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record another article called Migrant Crime Wave Not Supported by Data Despite High-Profile Cases.
Without objection.
Thank you. And then I would just like to say that my colleague from Mr. McClintock said, actually made the case that I think is important to the detail of the bill, the policy of the bill, which is that the Immigration and Nationality Act has impossible requirements that no administration has ever been able to meet. No Congress has ever appropriated sufficient funds to detain everyone listed in the current mandatory detention categories. And my colleague said there are all these other categories, and robbery is part of them. Convictions with robbery is part of them. And despite that, my Republican colleagues want to expand mandatory detention for those who are only arrested or charged. And so it makes absolutely no sense when we're already not able to detain people. That's under Donald Trump, it's under Joe Biden, it's under whatever
Gentlelady's
Republican
time's
or
expired.
Democratic president is in place. I yield back.